The desert outside the colony was silent, too silent. Ethan Cole thought he was just heading out to find scrap, maybe enough credits to survive another month. But what he found would pull him into a war he never saw coming, and into the path of an alien beauty who called him something he didn't understand. Soundbound. This is where it all begins. Stay with me until the end, because what happens next will change everything for him. And maybe for humanity itself. And if you love gripping hfy sci-fi tales like this, hit the like button so more people can discover it, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next chapter in Ethan's fight for survival. Now, let's begin. The desert outside the colony station was quiet, too quiet. Ethan Cole had lived on Mars for 3 years and had learned to trust his instincts. Silence here was never natural. Wind always howled, sand always scratched against the glass, machines always hummed in the background. But today, everything was still. He stood in his small living pod, staring at the blinking alert on his comm screen. Incoming object detected. Impact zone, 3.4 kilometers west. Objects fell from the sky all the time. Broken satellites, mining junk, space debris. But this alert felt different. The warning tone was deeper, sharper, almost urgent. Ethan grabbed his jacket and stepped out into the dusty red light. The horizon shimmered under the weak sun, and a thin trail of smoke curled upward in the distance. He thought about calling security. Then he thought about the rent payment due in 2 weeks, and the fact that finding a roommate on Mars was almost impossible. The crash site might have salvageable parts he could sell, maybe enough credits to survive another month. The walk was long, and with each step the air seemed heavier. The smoke grew thicker. Then he saw it. Half buried in the sand was a ship, unlike anything in human design. Sleek, curved, black like liquid glass. It pulsed faintly with lines of silver light, as if alive. And then, it moved. A panel on the side slid open with a soft mechanical click. Ethan froze, his heart hammering. A figure stepped out. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen, tall, with violet skin that shimmered like starlight, hair as white as fresh snow, and eyes that seemed to shift color between silver and blue. She wore a torn black shirt with strange red letters and silver bands around her arms. She stumbled, knees buckling, and Ethan rushed forward without thinking. He caught her before. She fell. Her skin was warm, almost too warm, and her breathing was fast. Her gaze locked on him, intense and unblinking. Then she spoke, her voice soft but steady. You are my Soundbound." Ethan blinked. "You're what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she clutched his jacket with surprising strength, as if letting go would mean death. Behind them, the alien ship let out a low hum. Lights along its surface flickered rapidly. The desert wind suddenly roared back to life, carrying a strange metallic scent. From the horizon, dark shapes began to move, fast, low to the ground, kicking up sand. As they came, Ethan's instincts screamed at him. This wasn't just a crash. This was the start of something bigger. Something dangerous. He glanced at the alien woman in his arms, her strange eyes reflecting the oncoming threat. He didn't know what Soundbound meant, but he had a feeling. It was about to change his life forever. And somewhere deep inside him, he realized this was not just about survival anymore. This was war. The dark shapes were closer now. Ethan could see them clearly, tall, insect-like creatures with armored legs and glowing red eyes. They moved in perfect formation, their long clawed arms scraping the sand as they ran. The alien woman in his arms whispered something in a language he didn't understand. Then she pointed toward the colony in the distance. "Run," she said, her voice shaking. Ethan didn't argue. He pulled her arm over his shoulder and started moving as fast as the heavy Mars air would let him. The sand made each step harder. But adrenaline pushed him forward. Behind them, the creatures screeched, A sound like metal tearing apart. The woman reached into the side of her torn shirt and pulled out a small silver device. It was no bigger than his hand, but when she pressed it, a sharp wave of energy burst out. The creatures staggered, some falling to their knees, but they kept coming. "They won't stop," she said breathlessly. "They've marked you now." "Marked? Me? I don't even know who they are." Ethan shouted over the wind. "They are hunters," she replied. "And you are my Soundbound. That makes you a target." Ethan didn't have time to ask what that meant. The colony's outer wall was coming into view, its metal panels glowing in the fading sunlight. If they could just reach the main gate, the ground exploded to their right, throwing sand high into the air. One of the hunters had leapt ahead, landing between them and the colony. Its eyes locked on Ethan, and a deep rattling growl came from its throat. Ethan's pulse raced. He had no weapon, no plan. The alien woman stepped forward, pushing him behind her. She pressed the silver device again, but this time it only sparked. The growl of the creature grew louder. Ethan looked at the gates, still too far. Looked at the hunters, too close. He knew if they stayed here, they wouldn't make it. Somewhere in the back of his mind, his survival instincts whispered the truth. If you run now, you might live. If you stay, you die. But when the alien woman turned her head slightly, her silver blue eyes meeting his, Ethan's feet didn't move. "Stay behind me." "Soundbound," she said softly, almost like a promise. Then the hunter lunged. The hunter leapt, its shadow swallowing the fading light. Ethan barely had time to blink before the alien woman moved. Her hand shot up, palm open, and a deep, vibrating hum rolled out of her chest. It wasn't just a sound, it was a feeling. Heavy and electric, wrapping around Ethan like an invisible wave. The air seemed to shiver. The hunter froze mid-lunge, claws inches from her face, its body trembling as if held by invisible chains. The sound wasn't loud, but it was alive. Ethan could feel it in his teeth, in his bones, in the quick drum of his heartbeat. The woman's silver blue eyes glowed faintly, and her lips parted, shaping words in a tongue Ethan couldn't recognize. The hunter screeched, not in anger, but in pain, and collapsed into the sand, its limbs twitching before going still. Ethan stared. His mind struggled to make sense of what he had just seen. What was that? He asked, his voice low, almost afraid the answer would change everything. She turned to him, still breathing heavily, her skin shimmering under the dimming sky. "That," she said quietly, "is why you are my Soundbound. Your presence makes my voice strong enough to bind them." Ethan blinked. "Bind them? You mean that sound?" "It is not sound," she interrupted. "It is a bond. You and I share it now. You cannot break it. And neither can they." Ethan's thoughts spun. He didn't remember agreeing to anything. He didn't even know her name. Yet here she was, talking about unbreakable bonds while deadly creatures hunted them through the sands. Before he could reply, a sharp howl split the air. More hunters, dozens. Their red eyes glowed in the distance like embers in the dark. The ground trembled under their weight. The woman's expression shifted, no longer fierce but urgent. She reached for his hand and gripped it tightly. "We cannot fight them all. We must reach the dome before they close the gates." Ethan didn't resist this time. They ran together, their shadows stretching long across the sand, the shipwreck fading behind them. And as they moved, Ethan felt it again, that strange hum inside him, alive and waiting, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. He didn't know where this bond came from, or why she had chosen him. But deep inside, he understood one thing: whatever was chasing them, it wasn't just after her anymore. It was after them both. If you want, I can make part 4 next with a twist scene inside the colony dome where Ethan finds out she might not have been running from the hunters, but leading them there. That'll really spike the suspense and keep viewers hooked. The dome loomed ahead, its curved glass walls glowing faintly against the darkening sky. Inside, Ethan could see the warm lights of the colony streets, people moving like shadows behind the safety of reinforced walls. The sight should have made him feel safe, but it didn't. The pounding of the hunter's claws was getting louder, echoing across the sand like distant war drums. The alien woman's grip on his hand was firm as they reached the outer checkpoint. Two armed guards stepped forward, their rifles rising the instant they saw her violet skin. "Stop right there!" One shouted. Ethan raised his free hand quickly. "She's with me. She needs medical help. She's not human," the other guard cut in. "Step away from her." The woman didn't flinch. Her eyes scanned the guards calmly, almost like she was memorizing their faces. Then she said in perfect English, "If you shut those gates now, you will all die within the hour." The guards hesitated. The words didn't sound like a threat. They sounded like a fact. Before Ethan could explain further, a deep, resonating thud shook the sand under their feet. The hunters had reached the edge of the clearing, red eyes glaring through the dust. The guards exchanged a quick look, then rushed to open the gates. As they stepped inside, Ethan felt the strange hum inside him again, stronger this time. It wasn't just in his chest. It was in the air around him, in the metal walls of the dome, in the way the woman's gaze never left the hunters outside. The gates sealed shut with a heavy clang, and for a moment, Ethan allowed himself to breathe. But then he saw it, the faintest curve at the corner of her lips. Not a smile, not exactly. More like satisfaction. Something cold slid into his stomach. "You knew they'd follow us here," he said quietly. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the central tower of the colony, her voice low enough only he could hear. "Soundbound, some wars must be brought to the gates before they can be won." Ethan's throat went dry. He realized then that he wasn't sure if she had saved him, or if he had just helped her open the first door to something much bigger. And behind the thick glass walls, the hunters waited. The dome went into lockdown within minutes. Sirens wailed through the metal streets, and steel shutters slid down over every shop and home. Armed patrols moved quickly, ordering citizens to stay inside. Through the thick glass walls, the hunters circled the colony like sharks in dark water, their red eyes never leaving the gates. Ethan sat on a bench near the med bay, his chest still tight from running. The alien woman, who still hadn't told him her name, stood by the window, watching the hunters as if she was reading their thoughts. The guards had wanted to separate them, but she refused to leave his side. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Why are they after you?" Her eyes flicked to him, silver blue catching the light. "They're not after me," she said softly. "They're after you now." Ethan frowned. "That doesn't make sense." You were just looking for a roommate," she finished for him. "I know, but fate doesn't care what you were looking for. You are soundbound now. My voice and your presence are linked. Together, we can destroy them. Alone, we die." Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. "Then tell me the truth. Did you crash here by accident or on purpose?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her jacket and pulled out a small metal disc. Its surface shimmered with symbols that seemed to shift and move like liquid. She placed it in his palm, and the moment it touched his skin, that strange hum roared to life inside him, louder than ever. "My ship was damaged," she said finally. "But I came here for you. I have been searching across 5 systems to find my Soundbound. And now that I have, the war can begin." Ethan stared at the disc, feeling its pulse match his heartbeat. His mind raced with questions. How could she have known about him, why him, and what war was she talking about? But before he could speak, the dome shook violently. A low, rumbling sound filled the air, deeper than the hunter's growls. The lights flickered. Somewhere above, a heavy crash echoed through the ceiling. She looked at him, her voice calm but urgent. They're not waiting outside anymore. They're inside the dome. The crash above was followed by a tearing sound, like steel being ripped apart. Dust rained from the ceiling as the distant shouts of guards echoed through the corridors. The hunters had found a way inside. Ethan's pulse quickened. He could hear their claws scraping the metal floors now, the rhythm fast, hunting. The alien woman stepped in front of him, her eyes glowing brighter than before. "They will come for you first," she said, "because without you, I am weaker. That is their mistake." The first hunter appeared at the end of the hall, its eyes burning red, its body too large for the narrow space. It charged, metal screeching under its weight. Ethan stepped back instinctively, but she caught his wrist and held it firm. "Listen to me," she said. "The bond between us works both ways. My voice can bind them, but only if your heart calls with it. You must speak with me, not with your mouth, with your will." He didn't understand, but there was no time to question. The hunter was almost on them. The hum inside him rose like a storm, vibrating through his bones. Without thinking, he focused on it, willing it to grow, to match her strange, resonant tone. Their voices merged, hers deep and steady, his raw and untamed. The sound tore through the air, invisible yet powerful, making the walls tremble. The hunter froze mid-charge, its claws inches from Ethan's chest, eyes wide with something that looked almost like fear. Then, one by one, more hunters appeared and stopped. They lined the corridor, bodies tense, trapped in the unseen force between him and her. Her gaze stayed locked on his. "Now, Soundbound," she whispered, "tell them to leave." He didn't speak the words aloud. He didn't need to. The thought pulsed out of him like a command carried by the hum. The hunters trembled, turned, and in perfect silence, retreated into the shadows. When the last one was gone, the hum faded. Ethan staggered back, his chest heaving. The woman's expression was unreadable, part pride, part something softer. "You did more than I expected," she said. "More than I thought you could." Ethan swallowed hard. "So what now? The war you talked about, is it over?" Her eyes softened, but her answer was quiet and heavy. "No, Soundbound. This was only the first battle. You are mine now, and I am yours, until the last voice falls silent." Ethan felt a chill despite the heat in the air. Somewhere deep inside, he knew his life had changed forever. He had been looking for a roommate and found a war, a bond, and a beautiful alien who might just be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. And as the dome's alarms faded into the night, he realized he wasn't sure if he wanted to escape it or follow her into whatever came next.